Welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. I'm John. I am the host. You guys are the audience, and we get along great. It's a good relationship to have. Anyways, welcome back. Today we're going to go back into the archives, as it were, and pick out a topic. And I didn't pick it. President Donald Trump did. So let's get to it. All right, in my very first video as a prepper YouTube creator, my God, those people suck at YouTube. Anyways, one of the first topics I did, or the very first, was a discussion of the top 10 things, right, that I thought would cause shit to hit the fan. And EMP, or coronal mass ejection, those two items I thought were very possible. And then I did some follow-up videos at that time. Way back then, there was the mini-series or the show called Blackout, or American Blackout, and it was about, I think it was a two-part series, or was my video two parts? I don't know. It was about what would happen if the electrical grid were to go down. Well, shit will hit the fan, right? And so that was one of the earlier topics I discussed in depth. But today, the news became popularized as Donald Trump, President of the United States, signs an executive order to protect the U.S. from a debilitating EMP attack. Okay, so this article and what the president is doing is about EMP, or coronal mass ejection, electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear device, or the sun can cause these. And it's also just about a blackout in general. And we'll get into why, but I want to get some excerpted statements out of this article, and then we'll go from there and discuss why you need to be prepared for exactly this scenario, and how to go about doing it, and why we need to think about it. Okay, so President Donald Trump signed an executive order on Tuesday, which is yesterday, ordering federal agencies to strengthen the resiliency of critical American infrastructure against electromagnetic pulse attacks. The order is the first ever to establish a comprehensive policy to improve resilience to EMPs, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders said. Okay, so in other words, this isn't a vague government bureaucracy policy. This was an executive order by President Trump saying, deal with it. Now, the use of the word resilient comes up in this article quite a bit. An elastic waistband on my underwear is resilient, right? Paint on my car or the wax job is resilient. When I think about electronic devices, they either work or they don't. It kind of works, and when I push the button, it either comes on and works, or it's trashed, it's crashed. The deal with an electromagnetic pulse emanating from a nuclear weapon, or because of a coronal mass ejection, which showers billions of electrons per square inch on us, and it just basically fries everything, that will cause failures. There's no partially working computer. There's no partially working automobile. It either works or it doesn't. So in order to make something resilient, we have to remove the parts from cars, computers, phones, televisions, the communication industry, manufacturing, the electrical grid, everything. In order to make it resilient, it's not really resilient. It needs to be fucking resistant, 100%. There's no stretching something out and letting it go and it snaps back like the waistband on my undies, right? That's not how that works. But they do use the word resilient, and it makes me wonder what they have in mind and what they're thinking about. So, the EMP threat has been a hotly debated point, with some arguing it is an existential threat, while others believe it is a conspiracy theory. Now, they've done enough nuclear testing, and this is more right, than just a conspiracy theory. There's some fact behind it. It's been tested, right? A lot of money has been spent hardening electronics to it. And in one way to harden electronics is understanding how they fail. They fail because, like a fuse, it is the weak link. And there's some part in there that if it gets overcharged with electricity, hello CME, hello EMP, it just pops it, breaks the circuit. Now you have an open circuit. Electricity can't go in circles and do its job, and things fail. So in order to harden something, what do they have to be made out of? Heavy duty, heavier gauge. They have to be insulated if at all possible. They have to have the ability to shunt excess voltage, right? There has to be very fast sensors in place, like MOVs, metal oxide varistors, is one example of a way to quickly shunt excess power. That's a surge protector, in other words. That's hardening. That will make things resistant or impervious, hopefully. But resilient is interesting. Still, so President Trump signed an executive order that could have debilitating, is a word in quotes, effects on critical U.S. infrastructure. Now, infrastructure is not my car or your television or our computers. Infrastructure is roads and highways and bridges and tunnels, right? Infrastructure is water, sewage, electricity. Those are things that we all use and support, all of us. Infrastructure. Infrastructure is also the administrative processes that go through all these things. But I'm sure that if the IRS was hit with an EMP attack, that we would all be just fine. I wouldn't mind it a bit. Doesn't make me a terrorist, and I'm not planning on anything, but I would genuinely, thoroughly, deeply laugh my ass off if the IRS was taken out by an EMP and they lost all of our records. Oh, that would be terrible. Of course, it would cause other problems too, but anyways, I would laugh. So, Trump instructed, up above it said ordered, but here it says instructed, federal agencies to identify EMP threats to vital U.S. systems and determine ways to guard against them. A potentially harmful EMP, all right, can come from a nuke or the other thing, the sun, right? So the threat of the EMP attack against the U.S. reportedly drove the president to issue Tuesday's order. What threat? There was a threat out there, apparently, and that drove the president, reportedly, to issue this order. Now, if they're going to, on a bureaucratic government level, try and protect, harden, make resilient our infrastructure against EMP, which is a human-created condition, I believe it's not only nuclear, but it could be done by HARP as well. And that also is not a conspiracy theory. Anyway, multiple federal agencies, as well as the White House National Security Council, have been instructed to make this a priority. So a threat has been issued. Is it North Korea, Russia, China? Is it a terrorist organization? Is it a terrorist business organization like James Bond's Spectre? Who knows? We're not going to be allowed to know. But hopefully they do take it seriously. Hopefully they do harden things. But I have a question. Why aren't they already hardened? Why don't they already have redundant systems in backup waiting? Why now? Why not a year ago? Why not 10 years ago? You know, these are questions as a prepper and an American and as a human being I like to ask. Why aren't they already prepared? If I'm smart enough to see it and know it, why aren't they? And the government, they've got people just sitting around thinking of shit. All right. Let's go with this next sentence. Today's executive order, the first ever to establish a comprehensive policy to improve resilience to EMPs, is one more example of how the administration is keeping its promise to always be vigilant against present dangers and future threats, the White House secretary said. With the release of this strategy, Trump became the first president to highlight the need to protect our grid. Now he's specifically talking about the U.S. electrical grid, the power grid. And this is where we drop back and say, this isn't about just EMPs. It's not just about a coronal mass ejection from the sun that is Earth-directed and just completely, right, charges the stratosphere, atmosphere, until it goes to ground through your computer. The U.S. electrical grid is not just affected that way. It's affected by cyber attack, and it's affected by terror attack direct. That's what that U.S. blackout is about. You know, an EMP can take out transformers, it can take out computer systems, it can take out generation equipment, transmission corridors, it can take that stuff out. But so can a terror attack. So can a cyber attack. We're talking about infrastructure. One of the most important pieces of our infrastructure, besides transportation and fueling it, is the electrical infrastructure. And we get into this a little bit here. We'll get into more of it, that's for sure. The vulnerability of the U.S. critical infrastructure to cyber, now they're using the word cyber. So as this article goes, it reveals itself that we're not really talking about an EMP. We're talking about any attack and threats. We are having threats against our structure. Critical infrastructure to cyber, physical, meaning terrorism, and electromagnetic attack means the adversaries could disrupt military command and control, banking and financial operations, the electrical grid, and means of communication. In other words, the loss of power will cripple our nation. And we're receiving threats, many multiple types of threats. EMP is a threat. Terrorism is a threat. Cyber attack is a threat. We're receiving threats to our infrastructure. And it could be coming from China, or Russia, or Spectre, or some backwards-ass, crazed Muslim or hillbilly out there that thinks they're going to change the world, and they actually accidentally get successful, right? We don't want that. This is a big deal. It was a really big deal 5 years ago, 4 years ago. It is now a big deal again because the president has made it a big deal. Is this a distraction? Possibly. Is it a real threat? They say it is, or it seems like it. Or is it a scare tactic? Could be. This could be a complete psychological operation to distract the American people and make them look over that way. But it's also a very real threat because there have been instances of terror attacks on power substations. Right? They shoot transformers, the oil leaks out of them, they malfunction, it causes an overload, overheating of the system, it blows the fuses, it blows other issues and safeguards within the system, and those don't always function properly. The system is not perfect. And so if it goes down for a day, that's really bad. Right? It's hard in the winter when your power goes down for a day, but at least you can take the food out of your refrigerator, put it outside. In the cold, in the winter. But in the summer, power goes out for a day. Everything in your refrigerator melts pretty fast because your house isn't air conditioned. So your refrigerator is hot on the inside, hot on the outside. Food starts to spoil very quickly. You've got two choices. You can throw it away or you can eat it pretty quick. That is, go barbecue it and start cooking because you're not going to cook on an electric grill, are you? Anyways, that's why a summertime loss of electricity is so important. There's not just a food issue, there's also people's health. People that require air conditioning to stay alive because they have weak systems, they can't sweat, they're not allowed to get hot, right? There's a lot of unhealthy people that are alive that require air conditioning. And not only air conditioning, but other electronic devices that keep them alive. But let's continue with this article and then we'll finish up. We need to mitigate potential impact. Yeah, no shit. Mitigate, reduce the effects of. We are taking concrete steps to address this threat, the official added. Senior U.S. officials, the official, administration official, senior administration official. How about a fucking name, please? It's not like this is top secret. All right, we are taking concrete steps. The steps that we are taking are designed to protect key systems, networks, and assets that are most at risk from EMP events. That is a lie. They're not worried about assets that are most at risk. They're worried about continuity of government, COG. They need the government to stay up and operating. The government is not worried about your computer or my phone or our cars. They're worried about their shit. so they can maintain control of the government, so they can supposedly protect and serve. You know, they're full of shit. They're worried about their power, their control, their ownership. Let's be frank and clear about that. Once they have total ownership and control of everything, just like today with the lights on, they can go about being benevolent and not fucking with us too badly. But let's just be clear about that. If we have an EMP, terror, cyber attack, or a combination, or a coronal mass ejection, or a combination, they're going to want to get their stuff up and running first. And that's what they're doing. I'm glad they're doing it because I don't want them fucking with me. I want them having a government that's operating so they feel like they're in charge and they just deal with stuff. Anyways, members and supporters of the decommissioned U.S. Commission to Assess the Threat of the United States from Electromagnetic Pulse, I wonder what their acronym is, have long warned of the possibility of an EMP attack, with some individuals such as Peter Pry, who previously led the Congressional EMP Commission, asserting that an EMP attack on America could kill off 90% of the population. For the reasons I just discussed, the loss of perishable food items, the suffering heat exhaustion or freezing to death if it happens in the winter, and people on critical medical needs are going to die, right? But people from starvation, from associated illnesses, when the power goes down, you're going to lose your water. And that requires electronic components, mixing machines, because they have to mix in a little bit of fluoride when they put in your chlorine to make sure your water is sanitary to drink. People are going to get dysentery and die from loss of electricity. Most people, you're a prepper, you're not included, but most people don't connect clean drinking water to the need for electricity until their electricity goes out and then their faucet's dry. And then they're told to boil their water, and they're like, why? Water's coming out again, why boil it? Well, because the processing and sanitizing equipment at the water processing facility is down. You know, it is a complex world we live in. This is the most technologically advanced world that we're aware of that the government's telling us about. Because if there was another one like this, it was utterly destroyed, maybe buried under ice, maybe underwater at the bottom of the ocean, right? Or vaporized and covered in dirt like, is it Dendera? No, not Dendera. Place in Pakistan. Doesn't matter. I don't want to get lost and go down into that road too much. But there's evidence of former civilizations that were once great. And if our civilization lost 90% of the population because of an EMP, a terror attack, a coronal mass ejection, or a cyber attack that took us down, we could very much be returned to the Stone Ages very quickly. Very quickly. Now, those seeking to raise awareness have pointed to the threat of solar flares as well as nuclear-armed adversarial powers. Others, including Jeffrey Lewis, a renowned nuclear weapons expert, have said that the EMP threat is a conspiracy. Lewis previously wrote that it seemed like the sort of overcomplicated plot dreamed up by a Bond villain, one that only works in the movies, bad movies. Well, I've got to tell you, I actually kind of like Bond movies, and I think they're good movies, even the ones where they have EMP. And that one would be GoldenEye, starring Pierce Brosnan. That's the article. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Or maybe, what can you do about it? Electricity is a part of our life because it does supply us with clean drinking water and food preservation, as well as food processing, as well as food growing. It's everything. Electricity is everything. And electricity comes from energy. A lot of it's hydroelectric or gravity-based, right? Or, hydroelectric. A lot of it is, our energy comes from oil or natural gas. And without it, we cannot exist. If they have alternative energy forms, they're not doing a very good job with it. We can't run our cars and our universe on nuclear power. They don't have enough of it, and I don't like it anyways. I don't really think it's the greatest. If there was no threat of a nuclear meltdown, nuclear winter, and nuclear destruction of the planet, I wouldn't have any problem at all. Anyways, we need energy to make this world the way it is. So a screw up with our infrastructure, the delivery of oil and fuel or gas, right, affects our power. Everything is interconnected. We have a very complex world. So when this guy, Mr. Lewis, rocket scientist, nuclear physicist, says it's an overcomplicated plot, dreamed up. Our entire world, folks, is overcomplicated. Fuck. You know, if our cell network or Wi-Fi goes down, we freak out. Holy shit, we can't even live without our cell phones. It's just a tiny little smidgen of a piece of our world. Everything is computer controlled, from our cars to our entertainment, to our communications, to our food, to our infrastructure, to our government, which we need to stay as calm as possible, because that government is inhabited by a bunch of idiotic fools. We need them to stay calm. Right? We don't need them making rash decisions that require intelligence because they're not capable of it. If you doubt that, take a look around you and then wonder, right? So EMP, coronal mass ejection, or terror attack on our grid is something we need to consider. It's very real and it's out in the open. It's something we should not forget because we are so heavily reliant upon it. And to the extent possible, I recommend that you have a generator and sufficient fuel in case we have a 1-week interruption, a 2-week, a 4-week, a 3-month interruption. Generators don't need to run 24/7, but they do need to run a little bit every day. They're useful in operating water wells, refrigeration, charging up electronics devices that are operable in a power outage, not necessarily an EMP. We may not have that. But this world is very complicated. So if you can mitigate or make yourself more resilient as a human by having solar panels, having equipment stored in EMP-proof bags, you can kind of get that stuff over at the preparedmind.club, right? Being EMP ready, understanding what an EMP or a loss of power means to you. That's part of your plan, right? It's food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. There's no electricity in there, is there? Food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense. Those are Maslowian needs. Electricity is a technological need and requirement. So you need to be technologically prepared, and that falls under your plan. Having solar, having a generator. If you're near a creek and you have sufficient fall, you can create your own little micro hydroelectric power plant and charge batteries. Right? And that equipment is available online. I've looked into it. Wasn't going to work for me. Anyways, we do have also wind generation. If shit hits the fan, it would behoove you to have the ability to create some electricity. So you can mitigate or reduce the effects of losing our power grid. But I got to tell you, if we lose power, having a little bit of solar is going to mean a lot to you. But if we lose power, having a little bit of solar isn't going to make the difference. Solar power alone, or the ability to make electricity, is no substitute for having food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, and a means of self-defense, and a plan, right? Because my biggest concern, my biggest threat, isn't the power going out. I'll survive that. I'll figure that shit out. It's not any of those things. My biggest concern is what people are going to do. See, that light bulb's not going to come up and stab me in the back. Right? My shelter isn't going to intentionally collapse upon me, try to kill me. But people will stab me in the back. They'll shoot me. They'll try and kill me when shit hits the fan. Because they will not have food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine. They may not have a means of self-defense. And they certainly don't have a plan. People in your 10-mile radius are the biggest threat that you're going to face when shit hits the fan. So you need to have everything in order and an understanding of how we could go from hero to zero in like 0 seconds. Hero meaning our overly complicated universe can come to an end very quickly. Not because of a nuclear bomb, but because the lights go out. So it's something to think about. And Trump, Dear old President Donald J. Trump is making it a mission to get the government prepared for that. Is he giving us a clue? Are the threats real? I don't know. But they are taking it seriously. They're going to spend some billions of dollars on it, I bet you. Right? But it could very well be real, meaning the threat is out there. And I'm not talking about some fantastical Bond weapon. I'm talking about some down-to-earth EMP or terror attacks, cyber or otherwise. And our world can change in a second. You know, we're watching the economic effects, monetary policy decisions, financial stupidity, all work together and bring down our financial world, our monetary, our that section of the shit it's a fan potential. It's taking years, and I've been watching, and it's taking months, and I'm watching. And pretty soon we're going to be down to just a matter of weeks before it has to change. It has to evolve. Shit is hitting the fan in the world of economics. But in the world of electricity, our infrastructure, right? It can be just a snap of the fingers. Lights are on 1 second, and the next they're not. Get ready. We're not going to get a warning for every potential shit it's the fan possibility. You won't get a warning on an EMP. It'll just happen. Terror attack, they just happen. This might be our warning, so get prepared. And I do recommend solar panels. I do recommend trying to EMP harden them or make them resilient by putting your electronics in EMP bags. And I recommend getting those things if you have the financial wherewithal to purchase them. And they'll continue to have value. Solar panels have value, whether you use them or not. Right? They're valuable to have. You can always sell them in a yard sale later if you've decided that you've had enough shit hitting the fan, or prepping, right, gets changed in some way and you don't need them for that anymore. Who knows? And that's the big question we ask is, who knows? Nobody really knows. All we can be certain of is that government will continue to make bad decisions. They'll continue to fuck things up. They'll continue to make enemies. And they'll continue to take, it seems, every opportunity possible to drive us to an SHTF type of world, a dystopian nightmare. And we need to live, we need to survive, and then we need to move on. So get prepared now. Chance favors the prepared mind. Is yours. You guys be cool, Semper Fi, and Godspeed to everyone. I'll talk to you mañana.